Welcome to another lecture with Professor Dennis. This time we're going to be looking at success tips for the research and writing heavy class. I'm going to start as always with a PowerPoint and a screen share. So let me get this pulled up nice and big for you. So best practices for research and writing classes are as follows. Use a planner, step one. The one thing that any author will tell you most often is to be present. In order to write, you have to plant yourself in the seat to do the work. The content you see written everywhere doesn't just magically create itself. It takes time, careful thought and consideration, and your dedicated attention. For that reason, I want you to consider using a planner. If you are in one of my classes, you will be introduced to this for the first 2 weeks of class. If you are in my co-rec or you drop below a C, you will be required to turn in a planner beyond the first 2 weeks of class. I have options available for you. You can create your own, or you can use a physical planner, possibly one provided by the school, and upload pictures of your planner into the assignment. The number one mistake I see students make is not selecting a topic for their paper until the last minute. For this reason, I encourage you to select your paper topic early. When you don't and you save for the last minute, this can push back the entire timetable for your paper and make you late on other assignments. Instead, jump into the assignment description early and jot down a few ideas. I like to jot my ideas down on index cards, a separate index card for each idea, or as a list in a notebook. Some people like to create a graphic organizer of a spider web of ideas. Others prefer to generate a digital document. Some do best with a recording app on their electronic device. No matter how you decide to keep track of your ideas, I highly recommend you put them in an actual location outside of your head. I can't tell you how many great story ideas I've lost over the years because I didn't get them out where I could refer to them later. Your next step for your paper will be research. You can take time, and this does take time, and it does require planning for you to be present in order to do the research. Again, make sure you're making the time you need to do your research. The best tips I have for you are to take notes as you research, and as you do, include author, last name, and page numbers. Your notes could look like index cards, jotted down notes in a notebook, digital notes on the computer. Maybe you printed off all of your resources and you've got them in a 3-ring binder. And you're reading and you highlight, and make sure, if that's how you do it, that you do take some notes off to the side. Why? Because I remember one term paper for a graduate level course that I was taking that I didn't do that for. And it was a nightmare. I had 20 sources spread across my queen size bed, and I was trying to dig through all of these 20 sources for one quote. Had I taken the time to actually highlight or take notes in the margins on any of these resources, I wouldn't have had to do that. So again, take notes as you go, even if they're just in the margins of printed off documents. You want to use peer-reviewed sources, and I'll get to that in a minute. You need to organize your research as well, however you organize best. Some people like to have them on index cards for each subtopic, and they just keep them in a little container. Some people like to have, again, the 3-ring binder that they have them printed off because they like the physical documents. Some people like to have folders on their computer and they have them organized specifically that way. However your brain works best, that's how you want to organize your research. And then do gather sources throughout the entire term. Think of it this way. If you have a 10-page paper and you're required to have 10 sources for that 10-page paper, you don't want to have to find all 10 sources the week the paper's due. That would just be a nightmare. So try and gather those sources throughout the term. Some questions I want you to carefully consider when selecting your sources are as follows. Did you use the online library for your sources? If you did use the online library, did you opt for the peer review only box? These sources are great and solid to use every time. If you did not use the online library, did you use the CRAP test to thoroughly evaluate your sources? What score did these sources receive on the CRAP test? Based on your answers to the questions of the CRAP test, and really be brutally honest with those, do you feel that these are still acceptable sources? Or do these sources maybe leave a little bit to be desired, even though they have the information you want? Remember, just because you want that information does not mean it's coming from a good source. You want the better source. Trust me on that one. Finally, when conducting research, it's important to remember to balance out your sources. You want to try to have a solid ratio of 2 peer-reviewed library sources for every 1 online source. In truth, 3 library sources to every 1 online source is an even better ratio to strive for. This is a solid balance to try and strike with your research paper and any research paper that you might have to write. Why? Because it shows that you're gathering only the best information that has been checked, double-checked, and triple-checked by professionals in the field who are credible and have a level of expertise that demands a level of respect and is less likely to be argued with. Also, consider how long your paper is. You have to show synthesis and a well-researched topic. While most professors will tell you how many sources are required, there are a few who will assume that you know the proper ratio for a research paper. The best practices outline that you have a minimum of 1 source for every page of paper you are writing. That means if you have a 5-page paper, you want to shoot for a minimum of 5 sources. If you have a 10-page paper, you want to shoot for a minimum of 10 sources. Why? Because this shows better synthesis than having 1 source per subtopic. Having only 1 source per point tells your audience that you did not put thought into this and that you are not well-versed on your topic. It can even imply bias and mark you as an untrustworthy source of information. Neither of these is a reputation you want in your field. You want to be seen as well-versed and educated on the subject matter and all sides of the argument, as well as being seen as a viable and trustworthy source of information, which marks you as an expert, or at least is well on your way to being an expert in your field. These are much more desirable outcomes for all the hard work that you're putting into your research and writing. I hope that you found this helpful and that you do take these tips to heart. These really are the keys to success in any heavy research and/or heavy writing course that you might encounter. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate to shoot an email using that email icon in your learning management system. Thanks so much.